you know, at the end, security or firewall are not bad solutions, but you just need to understand the limitations, or the, you know, the cost of maintaining them in an adequate level of security.
You mentioned a very interesting point. You said awareness is much better today compared to a year ago, right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming Stuxnet had a big part to do with that.
Of course. Of course.
Of course. So what's very interesting about that, and I remember when I spoke to Jeff Gray over at the DHS, when you were putting together your ICS slideshow, even DHS had a complete misconception of the potential ramifications of something like Stuxnet. Once it actually happened, you realized, wow, this could actually be even much worse than we expected. So in that sense, I guess Stuxnet was a good thing, wasn't it? I mean, it raised awareness, because I guess one point that's really interesting of course, I don't mean that it's great, let's all celebrate, but the issue is, I think oftentimes with security, unless somebody really sees a in-your-face incident like that, several of you were probably talking about security till your face was blue before Stuxnet came out. And now all of a sudden, I bet you're all doing much better, right? So
that's another misconception.
Come on, you got to be doing a little better.
Oh yeah, our fax machine, we just got somebody dedicated to putting paper in that machine.
But did it have any good positive ramifications on the industry? In terms of raising awareness and
Yeah, I'll start. So when Stuxnet sort of broke, where it became public, and as we were doing these talks, one of the things I always did is ask the audience how many people have heard of Stuxnet, and it was interesting, weeks and months and even till today, how many people have heard about Stuxnet? So maybe we could do that. How many people have heard of Stuxnet? But it was interesting that it didn't really hit, and the message didn't resonate. And it was not a surprise. I guess it was a surprise, but it wasn't a surprise, because as I mentioned before, if you talk to these utilities, they've all experienced some type of an attack or an issue with some malware, some virus, and it's not the end of the world. And it's almost like they expect it. And so I guess it boils down to, they haven't felt the impact. They haven't blown anything up. They're not going to do anything about it. And that's unfortunately the reality. That's the business side of it. And that's the thing that we struggle with, with security, is, making that justification for how much security is enough security. How do we elevate that knowledge? Because it's not just the right thing to do to apply technology to the problem, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't make sense business-wise, the business isn't going to spend the money. And that's the reality of it. And I think Stuxnet, whilst it was a great piece of work, awesome headline, grabbing attention, media, thing, it really didn't quite help the industry as a whole, because it was just, if anything, maybe it was just too spectacular. It was just too much, and it didn't blow anything up. That's the funny thing. So it's one of those things that security is just a really difficult concept for organizations to understand, in terms of how to make the investments necessary to keep that system operational. And the fact of the matter is, they just, they spend enough money to get them by. And that's unfortunately the reality right now.
Just have two data points on that. I guess it was January 2009, we actually had a technical paper showing how you could do something like that to a Rockwell Automation controller. And I think 3 years before that, the government put out something called the Boreas vulnerability that showed basically how this could be done. So it wasn't really news in theory or actually in proof of concept. And the second data point would be, and I think this one really gets glossed over and it just blows my mind, is Stuxnet was designed to affect a process. So physical process. And the closest thing to that physical process with, you know, an Ethernet card, the controller, the S7 PLC, the vulnerability, the complete lack of security in that Siemens PLC is still there. It hasn't been fixed. There's been no plan. There's been no announcement that in version, you know, 4. Whatever, they'll have a new feature that won't allow this to happen. It's still there, and it's still there in just about every other controller. So as much as we like to think Stuxnet was a wake-up call, everyone just sort of says, oh, well, we patched the Windows machine, so we're good. You know, and we epoxied the USB ports, so we're good. So it didn't wake us up enough yet, I guess, in my opinion.
So I guess to go back to the original title and discussion topic for this session, Industrial Control Systems Discussing Solutions. If that's the case, what is the solution going to be? What is it going to take for people to really just sort of wake up and say, look, we got to hunker down and we really got to make some changes?
Well, I just give one good piece of news is that I give the DNP3 community a lot of credit because they have security built into their protocol now, and hopefully, you know, in the next version it'll start to get rolled out into controllers, so that's a positive step. And if you look at things like Wireless Hard and ISA 100, they have integrated security into their protocol. So it's more the old line vendors with large installed bases that this is painful and expensive for, that something, basically the people buying their equipment are going to need to demand it, or a regulator's going to need to demand it, as far as I can see.
Yeah. I think the latter part of that is what I think is going to be required, is that the consumers or the end users of these, you know, systems are the ones that are going to have to demand it and be willing to pay for it. At the end of the day, it all boils down to the technologies available to have that there, and it's just a matter of spending the dollars to you know, mitigate that or have that functionality or that feature, that security function. But I think, you know, what really needs to change is, again, the culture, and this is something that, you know, again, look back at your own personal, you know, security posture in terms of how you practice just your own day-to-day activity around all of the cyber things that you touch, whether it's industrial or just personal. How do you act? You know, how do you behave in terms of trying to be more secure? And think about your culture. Are you changing? Are you any different today than you were, you know, yesterday or 5 years ago? And until everyone starts to think about the security of everything that they do, you know, trusting Facebook and Twitter and all of these social networks, trusting those USB sticks that you're going to get at this event, you know, that's where it's going to have to really that's the wake-up call that has to happen. And that's going to be a while. I mean, this industry as a whole, we're 5 to 8 years behind where the enterprise security sort of culture is. In the control, we're not quite there yet. It's getting a lot better. I mean, I know when I started in this many, many years ago, it was, you know, and for a lot of years, and even till today, it still feels as though we're trying to evangelize and educate and bring the level of knowledge up. So that's what I think is really a matter, and that's, you know, it's a lot of work. And the thing is, if you've got passion and you want to, you know, do it, like, you know, Dale does a wonderful job of blogging and promoting this stuff, and that's what we need, is we need that, more of those folks. The community is very small. There's only, you know, there's less than 120 people, I think, that are focused in ICS cybersecurity, that really understand both sides of it. And that needs to be, you know, that needs to grow. I just came from the SANS conference, and, you know, this is, I think, the third year they had it, fourth year. Attendance is up, a lot of new faces. I mean, that's what needs to happen, and it's getting there.
You know, I think Stuxnet's provided an opportunity for education, and just as you said, I'm sure there's more policies and organizations now about thumb drives and other removable media at this point in time. There's a lot of opportunity for improvement there. Will we see more of them? Sure, and there's other opportunities for improvements there. Also, the vendor community is responding for other kinds of solutions to potentially protect against that. You've seen probably lots of papers on you know, whitelisting technology or data diodes. So there's other strategies that come to the forefront when these kind of things come to the light. And so there are opportunities for improvement in education.
Okay, thank you very much. Is, any questions from the audience? Let's, can you come up to the microphone, please, Jim? Or that one, either one?
I'll answer your question, that's fine.
And then Andrew, you can be right afterwards.
I'm curious what you think the greater risk is. WikiLeaks style insider attack, not leaking something, but actually causing problems with the control system, or is it a nation state type Stuxnet attack from a practical point of view?
I'll take a quick crack at that. I think you've really nailed one of the core issues is that with a control system, fundamentally, it's going to be able to do control. And that's a design basis risk that the only way we're going to address that is by stepping outside the box and do things that you see in the IST community, really removing the hazards from the process themselves. But I think that maybe it won't happen in the short term, but we can get to the point where that risk of the insider risk is the significant bar on the Pareto chart. Today, I can't agree that that's true.
Andrew Gittner and then Andrew Wright.
I had a related question. Does the panel feel that the existing standards and guidance, NERC-CIP, the NIST IR 7628, and even the DHS catalog of controls, is that guidance sufficient to deter advanced threats? Are there credible advanced threats to the power grid? And if yes to one and no to the other, what are we going to do about that if the guidance is insufficient?
I'll start. I think the guidance can always be improved. I think if someone was to follow any of those standards, they'd be in a lot better position than if they didn't do anything. The reality of the matter is it's impossible to secure, against a targeted attack. That's just the reality of it. The best chance you have is defense in depth. That's what, one of the things that we strongly promote. And really just having command and control of your environment and managing change, knowing what's going on, having that situational awareness, having those layers of defense, and more importantly, managing it, sustaining it. A lot of times, everyone is looking for the silver bullet. It does not exist. My company does not sell a silver bullet. We sell a lot of pieces of defense in depth. We have the whitelisting, we have the perimeter protection, we have the monitoring, we have the compliance, we have a lot of the tools you need. But at the end of the day, I still need you, the people, and I need the investment of time and effort to make it all come together, because that's your best defense.
I think that one thing that is missing in the current regulation is that, and I know that people won't be happy with what I have to say, but they should be specific and prescriptive. It is not enough to tell, what should be achieved, but you should tell how and which technologies should be used in which scenarios and why. And until the regulation get to that level, I think that the added value is good, but it's not enough. And on the other side, the regulators or the government, and this relates to the previous question of that guy there, I forgot the name. You cannot ask for a citizen, for a control engineer to grasp an attack of a nation state and what should be done to protect against that. A utility who is a business oriented organization, or it's a company, it needs to run its business, cannot understand the implication of another nation planning to attack your country's infrastructure, it's just not relevant. So your government needs to deal with that, and it needs to take understandable, smaller chunks of actions and requirements and take them down to the industry and tell them, do that. This is how you need to do, and this is why. And I think that this is an evolution. And if you read at least the NERC requirements from the beginning version, the initial version until this version, you can see a slow evolution going from a very abstract sense of regulation guidelines to a more checklist. We're not there yet, but a more checklist-like of these are the things that you need to do, and this is the environment you need to protect, and these are the parameters defining that, and so on. And I think it's a good progress, and I think it should continue to progress until it's a real, checklist of what to do and where and why.
Okay, great. We got time for one more quick question from Andrew Wright there, and then we're gonna get ready for our next and final session of the day, the AMI Vendor Roundtable.
Okay, thanks. Andrew Wright, End Dimension Solutions. We do cybersecurity products and solutions for utilities as well. Walt, I agree very much with the whole defense in depth discussion. We agree very much that NIST 7628 is very high level, and we need to have more specific, detailed guidance. We're part of the National Electric Sector Cybersecurity Organization, NESCO, and very much the parties in that are discussing things like how do we come up with more specific guidance around that. So if you have specific thoughts around that, please send them my way. Here's my final last question. Dale, you elected not to hold your very well-established S4 conference this past year, and you explained in your blog why, and I was wondering if you might elaborate on that for just a few moments.
Just very quickly, we have a, last 4 years we had a very technical research type industrial control system conference, and the simple reason was we didn't get enough good papers this year. The amount of research in the industrial control system space you would think would be growing, but I guess I blamed it on smart grid because I think so many people were busy doing billable hours that they didn't have time to do research. So that was my best guess, but I don't know. I wish we would see a lot more good public research in this space.
So maybe we already know the solutions and we just need to do them?
I wouldn't say that.
Well, thank you very much. Let's give them all a big hand.